you came to the U.S. previously, on E2, so you're somewhat familiar on working with immigration attorneys and kind of working through the complications of the U.S. immigration system. So can you tell us a little bit about, your experience maybe working with a prior attorney on the E2, and then kind of how the EB-5 attorney experience differed, and how you kind of selected the attorney that ended up helping you on the EB-5 side?
So once I started to look for a way to stay in the United States permanently and came across through the EB-5 path, of course I reached out to my E2 attorney and asked them if they could also support with the EB-5. And although they are one of the largest immigration firms, they don't deal with EB-5s, and they really recommended to get an attorney which does nothing else than EB-5, because EB-5 is a very much different way than the E2. Just to give an example, I think the E2 file is limited to about 90 pages. 90 or 80 pages, so you are not allowed to send to the embassy more than 80 or 90 pages. Our current EB-5 file was about 5,000 pages, so it's much more paperwork, especially when it comes down to the source of funds. You have to prove where the money comes from, is it legit, and so on. So it's a completely different story between the E2 and the EB-5. That's why we also went with a specialized EB-5 attorney, Anahita George. She was introduced to me by Sam. Before that, I had interviewed about 5, 6, 7 different companies, most of them very, very well known as immigration lawyers in the United States. And although they were pretty good, all of them, even the terms were pretty the same as with Anahita George. Anahita was super, super responsive. So when I sent her a message via WhatsApp, it took maximum 1 hour to get a reply from her. And this is what convinced me to go with Anahita George. Anahita was really great in answering any question I had, not only regarding EB-5, but also the whole process. How would it look like to be in the States, but no more under an E2 visa, on the way to the EB-5? What about the travel permit? Can we leave the country during the process? And so on. So I had a lot of questions which are not directly related to the EB-5 path or the regional center, but to our current situation. So we decided to go with Anahita in mid of October. We signed the agreement, and then it took us about 6 weeks to get everything together, the documentation.
Got it. Okay, that's really helpful. Having just gone through the process successfully and completed it, what tips, advice would you have for a new investor like yourself who's kind of thinking about hiring an EB-5 attorney? Obviously, you interviewed a few different people, but yeah, other than responsiveness, what else would you give? What else would you tell someone to kind of look for when they're picking an attorney?
I think the reputation is, of course, one of the most important parts. I also found out that some regional center deal on a very different way with attorneys. There seems to be, with some regional centers, some connections to some attorneys, which may be a little bit fishy. So I would stay away from any attorney which has a direct relationship to a regional center. There are immigration attorneys out there who also help the regional center to be established, and now they are consulting the investor. So I think this can be an issue because of the different perspectives. So I would suggest to hire a really independent attorney. Responsiveness is one of the most important, and of course reputation. So although Anahita is a very small firm in comparison to all the others I interviewed, she was way the most responsive one over the others.